Welcome back to episode 4. 4 episodes. It feels like it was just yesterday. We were on episode 1. Time flies when you are sifting through the existential muck. That is life. I am Alex. Hello. You are listening to or watching My Therapist and I, a podcast that is not just about therapy, it is therapy. More specifically, my potentially mundane therapy. We shall see as to the gravity of it. But yeah, you're just a fly on the wall, just observing what therapy can be like. I'm joined by my podcast therapist, Dr. Steve Harris. Steve?
Alex, good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for continuing this great, grand pursuit into the unknown with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here and learning along the way and trying to figure out what exactly we're doing.
Yeah, ditto. Same here. Housekeeping. I got no housekeeping, so I'm going to kick it on over to you.
Okay. Well, what's on your mind about our work together?
I'm glad you asked, Steve. Thank you. So the last time we talked, we covered a lot of cool stuff, and I think where we ended was really interesting, this notion of like, we are still feeling each other out. Mm-hmm. We're still getting to know each other, and the therapy process, from my experience, has always been that way, in which it's like, okay, you know, you and I did not know each other at all, and then we've suddenly gotten to this point where we're talking about, you know, pretty heady stuff, and we're getting to know each other, and that process can take a while. And I really liked what you said when you ended the episode. You're talking about how, like, over time you develop a relationship with your clients, in the sense that you admire aspects of them, and you know, you feel invested in the work that you do.
Yep.
Because that's something I've always wondered about. Like, you always hear, or at least I think you always hear, maybe this doesn't come up in conversation a lot, but like the therapy client relationship, like there's this picture of it being like kind of Freudian, right? Where it's like someone's, you know, there's someone in control and someone is kind of below, or not below, but you get what I'm saying?
Below, and there's a couch involved, right?
Yeah. And someone is like observing the other. And I'd be curious to hear more about, like, you know, how does that relationship develop? Because when I heard you say that, I was like, well, aren't there like lines where it's like, okay, you can't cross this line, you know, because I'm the therapist and they're the patient. But it's only natural when you have these conversations to develop, you know, admiration, closeness, stuff like that. So how do you navigate that, and like, how does it work too in your work with couples?
Well, let me just talk about, you know, the therapist is a human being, right? And human beings are relational entities. That's one of my core beliefs, is that we seek out relationships. We struggle with relationships. We, excuse me.
You guys sip that water?
Yeah, maybe I need to.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw that out there.
So I think we're relational beings. Our relationships impact us. Sometimes they're healthy, sometimes they're not so healthy. And so as a therapist, every time I sit down with a new client, I'm starting a new relationship. I'm getting to know that person. I'm asking myself, do I like this? Do I not like this? Is this somebody I'd want to hang out with? And at the same time, I have a code of ethics and a code of professional behavior that keeps my actions and my interactions bounded to that therapy room. But the therapy room is a petri dish for developing a close relationship with someone. It's a type of intimate connection with another human being. It's a one-way street, right? Mm-hmm. You open up and tell me about your life, but there's not the same expectation that I would open up and tell you about my life. Though you've heard some things, you know, you've heard me talk about my kids and how I see my daughter parenting and things like that. But the expectation is not that I would then let me confide in you about all the things I'm struggling with. So there's an understanding that it's a one-way kind of an intimacy. Hopefully your therapist is is bounded and keeping keeping appropriate boundaries with relationship to the relationship you have with that person. So
yeah, it's easy to forget that, like, at least I've always approached therapy in the sense of like, okay, they're kind of like a doctor, right?
not kind of. I am a doctor.
Yeah, that's very true.
Alex,
Wow.
I don't just play one on a podcast.
Yep, that is what I meant to say was when you go into like
It's
the
almost
doctor.
like he's a doctor.
Yeah, that's
or
probably the
something.
most infuriating thing you can hear. Yikes. That was a faux pas on my part. What I meant to say was like when I go to see my doctor, it feels very clinical. And
Yeah.
I think that there is, and maybe therapy was like this in the past. It was very clinical.
It's that image you talked about,
Yeah.
that psychoanalytic
Yes.
image of the therapist, the analyst sitting behind and outside of the view.
Yes.
Like you weren't, like the doctor walked in one door and the patient walks in the other. So the patient comes and sits down first and the doctor comes in after. The patient's not even supposed to see the doctor in traditional psychoanalysis, like where we started.
Yep.
And so it's changed now. We sit face to face. We have comfortable chairs. And
Thank God for that. But yeah, it is, it is fascinating because I remember in times of like parts of my therapy where the conversation would come to like, oh, am I getting too close in the sense of like, are we becoming friends? And like, how does that work? And, but it's only natural when you have consistent conversation with someone and you share parts of your life that, yeah, like you said, we're human beings. And it's fascinating. And sometimes it's kind of weird. Like you said earlier, it's like, we didn't know each other. And then like you and I are talking and, I know I'm doing a podcast, but there's another part of my brain that's like, okay, what do we think of Steve? Do we like Steve? Do we not like Steve? He
we
seems
like
pretty,
him.
Yeah,
We do like him,
Yeah.
Alex.
He seems pretty nice. Hold on. As I'm talking, I'm going to drag. This is all the prep I did.
Okay.
And I just want to see what I had for this episode. Oh, it's not that long. You're in luck.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a good segue because relationships is kind of what I wanted to talk about. Are you reading? You can't read that.
Shame on me. Once again, Alex plays the trump card of the producer.
So with that said, I also want to throw up the segue to, or the disclaimer too, of like, if people are listening and they're dealing with stuff, this podcast is not meant to take away from the severity or the seriousness of what they are dealing with. And it's not meant to paint like a rosy picture of therapy in the sense that like the work can be really, really tough and really intense. With that said, I really want this podcast to be just kind of a tabula rasa, if you will. Like you're free to judge. I just want to illustrate what it can look like if you want to start at your own pace. So the things we talk about, and as I feel out Dr. Steve here, I don't feel like sharing really crazy stuff. And I got to figure out how I'm going to do that with a podcast too. Like,
or if you're going to end up doing that. And that's the same process everybody goes through. Am I willing to share with this person these things that are near and dear to my heart? Yeah.
The thing that scares me the most is not the sharing aspect of it. I'm okay with sharing it. What scares me the most is judgment or opening myself up and getting kicked in the shins.
And maybe not so much from me, but but the people who care about you, who are listening to the podcast, or people who don't even know you and are making judgments about you. Yeah.
I think about my friend who, again, she's my friend, but the comment she made, I immediately started going to that place of like shame. I'm like, oh God, I can't believe like, who do I think I am? Like making a podcast about my silly little problems that and like, it sucks to feel that way. But I think the source of that shame comes from this idea of like, the last thing that I want is for someone to feel like I'm comparing my problems to their problems. Like that's just the antithesis of what I want this podcast to be.
Yeah.
But with that said, hey, this is a free country. So if you want to judge, you get your judge chair out and you sit in it, you kick your feet up and you judge away. And we'll see what happens. So speaking of relationships and like this notion of fostering relationships, one interesting and relevant thing that happened is that once a year I have this kind of guys trip. And I look forward to it. It's been a huge part of my social circle has dwindled,
Mm-hmm.
this event has become more and more important. And it's basically our fantasy football
Oh.
uh,
Yep.
draft. And we're in a group. I'm in a group chat. And we live all across the country. And so once a year, we meet up in a new city and we do our draft and we have fun. And
Nice.
it's great. Yeah, it was. What was most fascinating is this was the first year where I went into it, and like obviously we're all older now. But my takeaway, there's no way of sugarcoating it. It was kind of in some regards it was unpleasant, and it was really. I had kind of a negative reaction to it. I think there was something about the fact that like I think we were all struggling with this idea of like we are trying to act like we haven't gotten 15 years older.
Mm. It wasn't just because you drafted Carson Wentz. Right?
Nobody drafted Carson Wentz. Actually, that's not true. Someone might have drafted Carson Wentz. But I think what was scary, not scary, but like kind of sad, was like I know all of these people and I really enjoy their conversation. But when we got there, it felt like we just had to be in party mode. And a lot of us clearly should not be doing that right now.
Okay.
You know, in the sense of like, you know, there's just a copious amounts of drinking and stuff like that. But like people were kind of dealing with some stuff. And it came out. And it was like really uncomfortable for me to be like, whoa, like, this is a group of people, and this was an event that I had plastered on my calendar of like, yes, only 30 days, only 29 days, 28 days. And then I got there and I was like, whoa, this makes me feel really uncomfortable.
Because of the nature of the stuff some people are going through?
I think what made me sad was knowing that we couldn't like sit down and talk about it. It was more so it came out after like a day of drinking, and the way that it came out was really just kind of like aggressive and gross and sad, like a lot of yelling, a lot of arguing, a lot of like people got really nasty and said really mean things to each other, like
wow.
And again, that was the alcohol speaking, and the source of it was actual emotional stuff going on. That a part of me was like, damn, I wish we could have just sat down and like done an activity that didn't involve drinking. We could have just talked about everything. You know?
But if you had said, "Hey, let's meet in Baton Rouge or wherever you met," and we're going to do, like an encounter group or a therapy group,
it would have been
I don't know,
dude, what?
Yeah, people may not have been interested in that.
But it was.
But have you followed up with them since that time? Have you do you send a group chat out to say, "Hey,
what's crazy?
We missed an opportunity to be real with each other, and we also love each other. We are also, Anyway, I'll shut up.
I sort of got into that when we talked about the league. I was like, guys, I want to get on a soapbox here. Like, I know we joke all the time, but I talk to you guys more than I talk to anyone. Like, I've been talking to you every day for 6 years straight, and I think that's really awesome. And and everyone agreed. Everyone was like, we joke around, but let's get sappy.
We love this group.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
And certain people were more hesitant to use that language.
Yeah, to go there.
But everyone nodded to it in their own way. And immediately after the trip concluded, the chat was full of like, hey guys, I think we should revisit how we execute this. And they said it in varying ways, but I think the prevailing theme was like, we should rethink this, because the whole like, let's show up and drink a ton is not working.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I were to say that's kind of where we left it, because at the end of the day, if I were to throw up the like, yeah, let's go on a walk, and just talk about our feelings, who knows what they would say. I might just throw that out there. But
I mean, I wonder if you could get to the same place without the alcohol.
Yes. Yeah.
Like if you go in, like you can also front load that, right? You could front load that whole weekend or whatever it is. And you could say, alcohol free, we're not going to do, we're not going to have that, or I'm not going to lose, I'll have a drink, but I'm not going to lose my faculties, so to speak.
I think what was so like not triggering about that weekend, but what it made me think about was my own personal journey with alcohol has been I was very collegiate in a sense of those movies like Animal House, like that.
Mhm.
That was kind of not entirely my experience, but growing up, I was like, okay, college is about having fun and
Mhm.
being dumb and drinking beer and doing as well as you can on tests and blah blah blah. But in the last like 3 or 4 years, I've made a concerted effort to just kind of reevaluate the role it has in my life, and
Perfect.
where I personally have landed, I'm very happy with.
Mm-hmm.
What makes me sad is I see all of these people in my life who I'm like, damn, these people are really cool. I really enjoy their company. I wish, but once they start drinking, they become completely different,
Mm-hmm.
and it affects my ability to, I kind of feel bad where I'm like, I
Don't want-
wish you knew how cool you were when you were sober, and like you should be like that all the time. But I don't know a way to
Do
articulate.
you get to the point where you're like, I don't want to be with you right now?
Yeah, yep.
Has anybody in the group said that to each other?
No,
Like, I'm not. I can't do this again.
no. And to be clear, like I'm not referencing, like there hasn't been a time up until this trip. There wasn't a time where I was like, I don't want to hang around these people. Like,
Yeah.
there are other people in my life where it's like I've had to adjust how frequently I see
Mhm.
them and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But it's kind of crazy to like look at, like, I always assumed alcohol made me a better version of myself. That's why I drank.
Mm.
I thought it made me like funnier and more charming and more sociable. It took me a very long time to realize that that wasn't true. It makes me every time it just makes me worse. It makes me dumber. It's like it etherizes. What is that, ether, right? That
Mm-hmm.
it just makes me like more comatose, which there's no aspect of me that can get better by numbing it, except feelings that I have. I guess it's a distraction, but experiencing that journey for myself has made it more challenging and difficult for me to like have relationships with others because I want to talk about it with them. However, that's not my place.
You want to talk about their drinking or their
Yeah,
relationship with alcohol,
or their relationship with alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or collectively our
Yeah.
relationship with alcohol.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be like that guy. But it just sucks because it's like so many people I feel like don't realize how cool they are. Right? Especially when it comes to alcohol. I feel like maybe everyone kind of feels the same way. Where it's like, well,
Is it how cool they are not drinking, or
Correct.
how douchey they become once they
well,
started drinking?
yeah, I don't know. But like there are lots of people I know who I really enjoy our conversations when we're sober.
Yeah.
Because they have a particular element. For example, maybe they're an engineer, and basically, I enjoy people when they get passionate talking about stuff,
Right. Yeah.
and people tend to do that, and articulate it well when they're sober, as opposed to when they're drunk. It's just a shame that like certain people feel like they have the courage to talk about what they're passionate about only after consuming alcohol, as opposed to like, yeah, this guy Alex seems like I can trust him. I'll talk to him about.
I think what you're talking about is, I mean, how I'm listening to it or how I'm hearing it and translating it is about, can I be more real in my relationship? Can I be more me in my relationship, or do I need the alcohol
Yeah.
to be more me? Like if I'm going to, in my mind's eye, I'm kind of recreating your guys' weekend, and somebody saying something, like I'm going through a divorce, or my kid's
Yeah.
struggling with his sexual identity, like a big thing that would change your world, that would change a direction of how you think about somebody or how you might operate. And like, wow, he had to get plastered before he could share that
Yeah.
with us. And what does that mean about our friendship? And maybe he doesn't really trust me with these things, unless his inhibitions are down, or his judgment is clouded or something. All these things that we know come with alcohol. So that's what, that's what I hear you saying. Like if you're the Alex who wants to move people, the Alex who wants to have meaningful interactions and meaningful relationships, I think the alcohol may get you there. It may get you some of the content, but in some ways, I'm hearing you say, I think it kind of cheapens it.
Oh, 100%.
It's like, yeah, we heard about, Jim's pending divorce, but it's like we have to give him truth serum to get
Yeah.
it out of him. Like, are we not the kind of friends that he would gladly share that with? Or are we not the kind of friends that can rely on each other or count on each other? I don't know if you go down that direction or not, but
I do. And more my mind is going right now is like, okay, Alex, could I be doing more to foster that kind of trust with these people?
I mean, I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah.
Even
No,
even
totally.
if you're doing a lot, is there more?
Well, I don't know
like-
that I am, honestly. And I
Right.
sometimes worry that maybe, and I had a really good conversation with someone and he prefaced it at the draft week and he was like, okay, I'll talk to you, but like, I'm going to be vulnerable with you. And he said it when I was like, do you feel uncomfortable being vulnerable around me? And he was like, well, you're really sarcastic. And I was like,
Yeah.
that is fair. That is 100% fair. And I think I made a joke about it, which probably didn't help.
No,
but
that confirmed what he was saying.
yeah, like accurate. But I remember being like, damn, like, no, I'm really excited about the fact that you have something to, like, let's be vulnerable. I want to help. Maybe I can help, but at the very least I can listen.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we ended up having that conversation. It was good. But like, clearly I can do more. That's where my brain goes, is like,
But you got a real kind of a blessing from him. He was vulnerable with you and saying, I don't know if I can be vulnerable with you. Right?
Yeah,
Because
yes.
you are this sarcastic guy.
yeah.
And sometimes I don't know how to take what you say. I don't know whether you're joking or if you're being dry or you're being humorous or if you're biting, like.
Yep.
So he gives you feedback about yourself and you get to hold on to that and wonder about it. Like, okay, well, was that true? Do I buy that? Obviously it's his experience. And so, I mean, how much alcohol had he had before he said that? Was he not?
He wasn't sober, but he wasn't like particularly
Okay.
drunk either. He was probably halfway there,
Okay.
just like a normal. But I remember when he said that and I was like, oh, well, and that's,
It's hard to get feedback like that sometimes.
yeah. And
Because you may not think of yourself that way.
I don't, and I wish Haley was in here right now because she would be like, we've talked about this, where she was like, I can never tell, like, you are so challenging to read in terms of I can't tell what you're really feeling or thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something I'm not aware of at all. It's only until someone says it to me that I'm like, oh, really? Oh, damn. And I've even had my therapist, George, has told me, he's like, you're probably the most challenging client I have to read their emotions. Like and I'm like, really? I think I'm really expressive. He's like, I got bad news for you, dude. You're not. Which is fascinating to me because it's not something that I'm aware of. I can't be, but
So going back to your guys' weekend, is it the kind of thing that you would reach out to somebody and say, hey, you said these things. I want to honor the things that you said. I want to go back to this thing. You like spilled your guts. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember spilling your guts? Do you remember telling us these
Yep.
things? I think that shows interest, connection, love.
Yeah.
These guys have been. You talk to them every week for 6 years. I mean,
well, that's what's crazy is like we just we only see each other once a year, but we talk every day for
every day.
It's a very odd dynamic, because again, don't see him, just see him once a year. But
And Alex, it may not be that odd of a dynamic. There's probably people listening who are like, yeah, I've got that same group.
okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't know. I always assume people have like friend groups where it's like they see each other like every week and they do fun stuff. And I feel bad. Is this chair just killing you right now, or what's going on here?
I don't know why my neck is sore,
Okay.
but so I'm good. I'm
Okay,
fine.
well, we can figure out a way. I mean, these are supposed to be like, I feel like there's comfortable chairs. I don't know what more I can do for you, Dr. Steve.
No, don't worry about it.
Okay. But I could follow up, and I should. And honestly, I always complain about like where I worry a lot about my lack of relationships, or this fear that I don't have strong relationships. But at the same time too, like I 100% can make more of an effort to kind of create what it is I would like to have. And
So is this something somebody's told you, that you have a lack of relationships?
no, I feel this way about myself.
Or you feel that way? Because that's not, like, in my entire interactions with you, that would not be something that I would have put on you, would have
Yeah.
assumed about you.
Yes, that's fair. And hey, that's why I'm here, Dr. Steve. Clearly, I got some screws loose. No, yeah, I think I've always kind of worried. I've always felt like, I don't have a lot of, I don't have a lot of close relationships, or like, you always see like people on Instagram or Facebook and they're posting photos of like group trips and everyone's smiling, having fun. It's like 15 people and they've known each other for 20 years. And it's like, yeah, I've never really kind of had that, or I don't know.
It's a trap.
Yeah. A trap. How? What do you mean?
Well, it's a trap to look to Instagram or Facebook and then make any kind of conclusions about what people are doing and how they're living their life, because everything's great, right? I have a friend who posts regularly pictures of her kitchen sink and her kitchen, which is usually always a mess. And so this is the way I am, right? So I love that about her. But
yeah. But yeah, it was a fascinating weekend because, again, it was the first time where I left being like, wow, I don't know if I want to do that again. And it made me think about my kind of personal growth and like what I have written on the screen. You can look at it now if you want to.
I can't because the camera's in the way.
Personal growth can make it challenging to relate to others sometimes, or can make it challenging to continue to have relationships with people.
But are you making the assumption that that you're the only one having that experience? My guess is that if these are your age cohort, if these are guys you've been with, some of them are having that experience as well.
Yeah.
Some of them had it the last time and
weren't. Didn't want to say it.
Or didn't want to say it.
Yep.
And they're like, I can't let the guys down. And
yep.
They're talking to their wives on their way out the door, or their partners, and they're like, I gotta go do this thing again, and there's gonna be the drinking, and then someone's, Richie's gonna lose it, and we're gonna hear about his daughter again. Like whatever people are saying, but
that's so true.
But maybe other people are feeling the way you're feeling.
Yeah.
And if you put it out there, you risk the ridicule, like,
yes, which I can take.
Yeah, and this is a bunch of guys who probably jaw at each other.
Oh yeah, a lot of jawing. Good-natured banter. But I think what you're saying is true in that I'd be willing, just based on the first message that came out alone, which was the group chat, it was like, hey guys, I think we should talk about how we do that. Like someone else threw that out there.
Yeah.
Which leads me to believe, and no one harped on him for it.
Yeah.
It was met with like kind of a silence, which is like, yeah, you're right, but I don't want to say anything. So yeah. But it's so funny.
Did anybody agree? Did anybody jump on eventually?
Yep. Everyone was like, at least two people. One person was like, okay. I mean, I chimed in. It was like 100%. Someone else was like, yeah. And another person was like, okay, should we figure out how we're going to do it differently right now? And I was like, let's let some dust settle. Let's let our brains recalibrate in terms of our brain chemistry. We'll tackle this later.
So it was soon after.
It was the day after. Yeah.
People are on their flights home, or
yep. I think I just landed, and people were already like, yeah, someone would be like, I feel terrible right now. I don't want to do this again. Can we figure out a way to not drink so much? As I think was, I'm paraphrasing, but
was it just the drinking part, or was it like things were said that now we have to recover from, or that we can't unhear? Or
I think it was the drinking led to things being said, and I feel bad about I feel bad about the drinking, and I feel bad about what I said. I'd like to not go through this process again.
Yeah.
Can we?
Yeah.
Which, like, again, the vast majority of people I know, I find them to be way, like, more interesting and cool and thoughtful and kind when they're sober than after a few, myself included. And I think it took me a very long time to realize, like, everything that I was ashamed of, like the picture I had in my head about the worst version of myself was really just the drunk version of myself. Yeah.
Do you feel like generally in your life you're comfortable with your relationship with alcohol now? Do you feel like you've figured it out, or?
I would like, and again, I have I've put in so much. I put in a ton of work
Mm-hmm.
on this, and this was a very long and arduous road. But I do feel the last 3, and I credit a good portion of this to Haley, my fiance.
Mm-hmm.
Having her as a partner is very helpful in this regard. But yeah, I feel pretty good. I still have, like, I'll be honest, I still have, I don't know how to describe it outside of, if I have a beer, there'll be a voice in my head that's like, woo, party, 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 and it'll be like, get excited. We're going to have 8 more of these.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be like, hey, dude, I hear you, but I'm not interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that voice will always be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I have gotten to a point where I feel much more in control in terms of like, okay, I can just have a beer. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have 0 beers. I probably drink, like there'll be maybe 5 to 10 times a year where I'll drink alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And when I do drink, it's not to excess. It'll just, but again, I'm not perfect by any means, but I feel a lot better than where I was.
I love the way that you talk about it. You actually brought up the way that I talk about it with my clients. I talk about their relationship with alcohol. I never say, are you an alcoholic? Do people call you an alcoholic? I'm like, where are you at with your relationship with drugs or alcohol? And, people usually respond like, I'm comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable with it. And then there's other questions that you can ask from there, but yeah,
it is,
these guys, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt, but these guys mean a lot to you.
yes.
Totally. It'd be interesting you guys can envision or revision what this weekend looks like.
Yeah. It would just be a question of sitting down. And I honestly believe you had suggested this, like, is everyone thinking the same thing? I bet you they are. I bet you they're all kind of like, oof, I don't know if I can do this again this year. Mm-hmm. None of us have talked about it. And again, I keep focusing on like this conversation I had with one of the guys who I only see once a year. And like, I was so excited when he was like, can I be vulnerable with you? You know, like I want more of that. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if they want that from me too. And I should just talk about it. I think that's a good place to wind down this session, unless there's anything else you wanted to add or to ask.
I'm sitting here thinking about what that's like. I mean, you and this group of guys have known each other a certain way. You've constructed a way of being that's around the fantasy draft, obviously, and then your relationship with Israel, and it's fueled somewhat by alcohol, but you're on the cusp of reimagining it and changing how you guys think. And I don't think that means you have to, I don't think it means you guys have to become a therapy group. I think it's okay for people to be real. Like, hey, this thing is going on in my life. It's really hard for me right now. And I'm really glad I get to be by guys who help me, forget that my dad just passed away, or forget that I'm going through a divorce, or, and I don't know what's going on in their lives, but you guys may envision or refashion this group to be even more meaningful in your life than it is already. You have daily contact, and your daily contact is around the football fantasy stuff, but it could even be more. And that's what you say that you're about, right? Movement, impact, relationship. These are the things that are important to me. And so that might be a place where you venture out a little bit and lead out and say, here's what I'm feeling.
Yeah. It would be really cool to turn, it doesn't have to happen overnight. It doesn't have to completely change, like you said, but maybe if it's like 25% of the event becomes more about, it becomes 25% more like about support or
real.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to be like, oh, it's either 0 or 100. It's like, maybe we can, next time we bake in half of a day where we do an activity that doesn't involve alcohol. Mm-hmm. And we say, okay, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. we're going to all do this thing as a group and none of us are going to drink. Like that alone would probably have, and we could build on that year after year.
But I also think that you have an opportunity to get vulnerable. Like the thing you just shared with me, like even now when I crack open a beer,
Yeah.
there's this part of me, there's this little voice back there that's like, party, party, party.
Yep.
You know, like
Yep.
that thing calls me. I think that's what alcohol does, is it can call people.
Yep.
Like, wow, it's, you know, I no longer have to sneak it. I no longer have to, you know, I have somebody buy it for me. I'm all legal and everything, but there's still this part of me that is associating the use of alcohol with this time in my life where I was less responsible, less, you know, felt like I had carte blanche to go and be irresponsible and do stupid things, and people would just excuse it. But now none of us are like that anymore. We're CEOs and we're you know, regional directors, and we're therapists, and we're
Podcasters.
podcaster therapists. Yeah.
We're people who get therapy via podcast, the prestigious position.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to think on ways that I can, I mean, the group, again, we all think kind of the same way. I think we're all on the same page. It's just a question of like getting it out there and talking about it. And maybe I can lead by example in the sense of like, I can be vulnerable with the group and see where it goes from there. Because being vulnerable is kind of at the heart of any relationship.
Yeah, and I would love to hear if anything comes of it.
Yeah.
You may decide, I'm not ready to do that, but I'd love to know how that's received. I mean, you may get called out. He's such a wussy. He's going soft on us, or
I don't think so.
It may not be that way though.
I think it'll be more. I don't know. It'll either be met with silence, which stings the most, or some kind of like deflection, like not a hard no, but a like let's not talk about this quite yet. But yeah, I definitely will think on that. And yeah, as I get older, I find myself wanting to try and like create more real relationships, like realer and realer, which
meaningful.
Yep,
meaning and impact.
Meaning and that's the Google map showing up.
There you go.
Okay, well,
let's wrap up.
Yeah, well, you got someone waiting out there for you. Thank you for your time, Dr. Harris, Dr.
All right.
Steve.
All right.
And thanks to everyone listening. And we will see you again next time. So take care.
Take care, Alex.
Thanks.